Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you happen to be. My name is Christopher Harrison. This is 15 Minutes to Merge, the show where we bring on really smart people to help answer the most common questions that we get asked by developers and DevOps professionals. And by far towards the top of that list these days is how do I best interact with GitHub Copilot? Because at the end of the day, GitHub Copilot is a tool, just like your IDE, an extension, or any other plugin that a developer might reach to for help in writing code. We have Lindsey Bocatto here today to help us learn how we can best interact with GitHub Copilot. Thanks for joining today, Lindsey.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start by having you introduce yourself. Who is Lindsey Bocatto?
Lindsey Bocatto. I am a GitHub Solutions Engineer on our East team. I help large enterprises adopt the GitHub platform, and Copilot has definitely been the thing that we've all been talking about quite a bit, especially over the last 6 months.
Well, let me go ahead and just ask you the question right up front, which is if I go ahead and I hand GitHub Copilot to a developer, it's their first time, what would you tell them? What do you think is going to help set them up for success?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one I think when I talk a lot with my enterprise customers about rolling this out, especially at scale, is providing people with the context around how the tool works and what to expect from it. Because I think it's really important to start with expectations, because a lot of times what happens is people will go install the plugin and then maybe they open an empty file and they put a vague comment and maybe they get something a little funky from Copilot and they're like, well, this doesn't work, or what did it do here? And perhaps they're maybe starting with like an existing problem and they're not really sure how to work with code complete. They're not really sure when to bring chat into the picture. And so they maybe are struggling to understand what Copilot has visibility into, so they don't know how to prompt it correctly. And so the first step, I think, is really understanding how it works and what Copilot has access to. So when we talk about the Copilot tool foundationally, when we're talking about Code Complete and the Copilot chat, we have that underlying OpenAI model that is backing all of this up. So it's trained on billions of lines of code that's publicly available. So you have all of that kind of knowledge as a foundational piece of that. Now, if we're looking at the power of Copilot, it is contextualized to your actual files that are open within your editor, and then when you're using chat, actually being able to reference the workspace files that are not necessarily open, and being able with natural language, being able to describe what you're looking to accomplish, to ask questions, to say, hey, I need to write these type of tests. And then Copilot's going to be looking at what you have open within your editor actively. And again, when you're using that workspace command, looking at some additional files to bring all of that to you. So I think that's kind of the first step, is understanding that's what it's looking at. It's not like associated directly with your repo and has visibility into just everything. I imagine that is at some point in our future, but especially when we're talking about Code Complete, keeping in mind what is open and which the file you're actively working in, that's going to be prioritized by Code Complete.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most common misconceptions that I hear from developers is that they kind of assume that when they install Copilot that it will have access to the entire project or to the entire repo, or that if I reference a file or a library from inside of a bit of code, that GitHub Copilot is going to like follow that link and be able to open up that file. And of course, that's not how GitHub Copilot is going to behave. That's not what it's going to be using for its context when it goes to generate those suggestions.
Correct. Yeah. And so when we're talking about using Copilot, I think context, that's the big thing, right? Whether it's what's going on with kind of our underlying model and the richness of the model that we have, built off of, and then also the richness that's coming from your editor. Those are two huge pieces in how we have fine-tuned Copilot to be able to pull that relevant information, so that when you say, hey, I'm going to make this type of method, it's going to be looking at what else is going in that file and or within other relevant tabs that are open to say, okay, well, this is the way that maybe other methods have been done elsewhere in the file, along with all those billions of lines of code, synthesizing all of that, and then providing you some suggestions that you can select.
So we've mentioned context a couple of times here. So let's go ahead and define it. So what is context when it comes to GitHub Copilot? What is it going to be using?
Yeah, great question. So when we're talking about the context, talking about what is going to be sent to the model to be able to generate those rich suggestions. And so again, especially, let's just take, you are starting something from scratch and you have one file open and you are typing along and you're starting to make some context for Copilot at the top, maybe by way of adding some high level requirements or logic at the top in a comment. So you can do that to kind of set the stage, if you will, especially if you're working in a new project where there's no additional context by way of other code or other files open. That could be perhaps a good place to start. That way you're saying, okay, this is what I'm trying to do, broadly speaking, within this file. Then as you work down your way, chunk by chunk, Copilot is going to be referencing not just immediately what's at your cursor, but that context across the entire file, say, in order to synthesize that material with whatever you are prompting it with. So you have that broader context, and then you have the prompt, which is maybe the next question is, what defines the prompt? And how do you prompt Copilot? So when you're talking about Copilot Code Complete, right, typically you'll be interacting with it as you're typing, and you get that ghost text experience where if you step back for a second and take, your fingers off the keyboard and you stop typing, it's perhaps going to be anticipating, okay, they've started something here. Now I can kind of fill in the blanks. Another way to prompt it and to get it to suggest something is through comments. So if you're describing the logic you're looking to start incorporating a new function, new method, what have you, you could say, create this type of unit test, and you're descriptive in that, and you provide some extra richness to that, and you're very specific, and you're going to clarify what you're looking to accomplish. Once you hit enter, Copilot should, see, okay, they have created a comment, they are looking for some code, and it will start to provide you some code suggestions to you.
Okay, so that's when I'm using code completion and I'm typing code and I'm generating code that way. How do things look if I'm using Copilot Chat?
Yeah, great question. So if you are working with the code complete, then it's going to be looking at your neighboring files. Now, when we talk about Copilot Chat, we have made it more extended into the broader project by being able to use this at workspace command. And so you can actually, and the ability to target specific files. I do believe that functionality is actually still technically in the preview or the pre-release version. And so as we bring that out, I think that's going to be really helpful, especially when we talk about prompt engineering, because it'll give you the ability to reference other files. And maybe you don't have them open, but okay, well, I've got this database, this implementation file, and I need that context to be drawn on because I'm asking chat a question in a file over here. I know this belongs over here, so I want chat to be able to see as I highlight the code, okay, this is what I'm talking about, but I also want you to incorporate an additional file. So that is one way that you can do that with Copilot Chat.
Okay, so, and that I think kind of makes sense, is that if I'm writing code, it's going to look at the tabs that I have open, the file that I have, and if I'm asking chat, where I'm inherently going to be, a little bit more interactive, then I can take that additional moment, I can take that additional step and go, hey, I specifically want you to look at this. So if I'm writing code, make sure I have my tabs open. And if I'm utilizing chat, then I can specifically tell it, this is what I want you to look at.
Yeah, so you can do that with the at workspace command and then ask a question, where perhaps does this method, where does that show up? Those sorts of things. For instance, one of the ways I was using it earlier this week is like if I apply this label to deploy, like what labels can I utilize to deploy to Azure within a given application? And it pulled some information for me. And what's really cool about when you're using chat with that workspace functionality, it's actually telling you what it's referencing. So you can actually see that. You can see, okay, here are the files that it's incorporating within its response. So you can see, all right, it's giving me this answer, which is great, but I'm also looking to find it, and I can click on that. And so that's a very convenient way to see where is its head at, essentially.
Okay. So I guess when I'm kind of breaking this down and I'm thinking about it, is I now have those two tools that I can use when I'm writing code. Is I have the one that's going to help me out as I'm writing my code and I'm adding in those comments and I'm doing my things there. And then I've got chat. And when I'm working with chat, it feels very obvious. Like I'm now, able to like ask this questions and I'm able to like really focus in on my intent, what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. Kind of how do I then in turn do that with code completion? Because after all, I just have this huge file and, there's an awful lot of directions that I could be going here. So like, how
Yeah.
do I like best give it
Yeah.
some info?
Yeah, so you can commune with Copilot when you're doing code complete by, and particularly within the comments. So that's where you can do that. And it's a very convenient way to be able to communicate with Copilot as kind of, I consider Code Complete as kind of your fast twitch muscle. So as you're going, you don't necessarily want to have to go into the full chat interface to type out an entire kind of sentence in a very like natural way. You want to do something kind of quick within a comment inline where you're typing, get that in there, and then have Copilot make your suggestions. What kind of goes in between those two things is our inline chat. So you can do like Command I and have Copilot within like a selection. You could highlight over it, hit that, and you can ask Copilot a question that way. And that's just a little bit more convenient instead of having to toggle over into the chat at the side of your screen. You can use that also to see the diff. So if you're trying to transform that little snippet of code that you've highlighted, it's really cool because you can say, hey, do it this way. And a big thing with Copilot is just iteration, 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 right? And that's true of software development anyway, and that's certainly true of using Copilot. And so you can highlight over, use that inline chat, and when you hit enter, it'll actually show you the inline, the diff there so that you can see if it got it correct. You can just accept that, and that's really easy. If you need to make another quick little tweak there, tweak your prompt a little bit, you can do that very conveniently. So that's one way. And then also just with that chat, the chat GPT like experience that is, in this case, very conveniently within your editor to the side there, you can open that up. And that is for perhaps you're asking a broader question, or you don't want to waste time going into the documentation or going to Google and having to search for something. And so you're able to ask your programming related question right there and ask it to respond for you. So it'll provide your response there in that paragraph form. And then you could go back and forth with it like a real pair programmer, right? Having more of a conversation instead of just doing kind of those quick back and forth onesie twosie, code chunks.
So let's close out with this. What would be the big tips that you would give to somebody, like the couple of like actionable items? These are the things that they should be doing to help get the most out of GitHub Copilot.
Yeah, so I think keeping in mind prompt crafting and that idea in general. And one thing that when I was reading an article, actually, I think it was on the New York Times recently, where a programmer was talking about using other AI tools. In this case, they're using ChatGPT And this applies to Copilot, where they're looking for, in this case, Copilot-sized holes to go and tackle. So I think when some people kind of struggle to find, they might think either it's a magic wand or they don't expect enough from it, right? And so there's going to be some trial and error to find those Copilot-sized holes to be able to see, okay, well, when I'm using code complete, okay, I'm going to provide this level of detail within a comment. And if I'm trying to do maybe a little bit more involved, I need to provide more, maybe snippets of my requirement document, for instance. You're not going to necessarily want to include that in a giant long comment, right? Maybe that's where chat comes in. So you're going to provide, you can copy over, if you're working in like a GitHub issue, right, and you have some requirements that you've already mapped out, providing that context to chat when you're starting a project could be really helpful because it's giving chat that context. And as you're going back and forth to ask questions or to develop something that's assisted by chat, that could be helpful. So starting with the idea somewhere, whether that's the small idea of I'm making a little tweak or starting with the larger idea of I'm starting a new project, providing that at the top of the file, perhaps within chat, that can be really helpful. And then just being specific and providing some clarity. So for instance, if I am working on something and I want some error handling, sometimes Copilot will automatically suggest that for me, but it doesn't always do that because it doesn't always know that's what I want. And so perhaps that's one of the little qualifiers I add to it. So I'm going to add with error handling maybe in this way, or I need to include this type of message to the user as a welcome message or what have you. You can start typing away, and then if you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I need to have this or that, include that as a qualifier, whether that's in the context of the comment or within the context of your chat. Do that and just play around with it. When you're using chat, highlighting some code and asking it to explain it to you. We have some really handy slash commands with chat that are really great. So for instance, if you have a bug in a certain area of code, you can use a slash command for fix it and see what that suggests to you. And once it makes your suggestions, you might need to still tweak it a little bit. And it's all about kind of that back and forth iteration. Again, we call it Copilot for a reason. It's not an autopilot, so it's not always going to have what's in your brain necessarily. The broader context is great, but oftentimes you are going to need to work with it and find that sweet spot to say, okay, this is the kind of additional information I need to provide for the best result. And that is something that you'll pick up along the way.
Lindsey, thank you so very much for joining today, and thank you to everybody for tuning in to 15 Minutes to Merge. Please check out the description below for helpful links, a bit more information. If you have any questions, or if there are any other topics that you want to see us cover, please ask those in the comments below. Thank you again to Lindsey, and thank you for tuning in to 15 Minutes to Merge.